Hey everyone, Wonton back to bring another One Piece tournament match, and this time we have Blue Crocodile versus Film Law. And because Nami and Dadan are still stuck in prison for a few more weeks, we're out here just experimenting different builds for Law. As you guys have probably noticed by now, Law is my favorite deck to play. I wasn't too big of a fan of the Wano version, so I'm just going to try out this film version, which did deceptively well just because this is the finals of a tournament I ended up going 5-0 at. So nothing crazy about our start here. I'm going to drop a Gordon, which is a Dadan that I got from the dollar store. He is just like Dadan, a 2-cost 3000 body with a much worse effect where I have to bottom deck a card in my hand to draw a card. And then he's going to play the Centaur on curve, which is of course what Crocodile does want to do. They want to go first and drop that Centaur on 3 Dawn. We're going to swing at his leader here, and he's going to trigger the red rock off of his life, and he's going to bottom deck that Gordon just to deny us a body on the board. It's just another body we have to develop if we want it to shambles. So he's just trying to clear our board here. And at the same time, Gordon just exudes so much pressure. So again, we're just going to play the Zoro, then we're going to drop the Beige to protect our Zoro. Just start hammering away at his life, draining either his life or his resources in his hand. And right now Zoro does present the biggest body on the board, so I'm pretty confident we can defend it, especially with that Beige up. And here I block that swing from his leader onto Zoro with the Beige, and then he's going to grab the Pacifista using Sendamaru's ability. So first things first, we're going to have to try to get rid of that Sendamaru. We can't leave him up. We can't have him just start pumping up Pacifistas and just getting some crazy value out of that. Then we're going to develop the Nami, and of course we're going to search 3 for a film card. And we're going to grab a Sunnykun. Unfortunately, we did not get any counters, so we weren't able to protect that Zoro. I would have if I could. And so Zev is such a strong card, especially when you play it on curve here. He is pretty far ahead at this point. We have nothing on board. He has a blocker and 2 6,000 bodies on the board already. So now we're just going to start flooding the board with our cheap drops. Our 3 little animal looking things. This is almost starting to look like a Zoro deck, actually. And we're going to drop the double Bonnies just so we can activate Shambles. Then we're going to bring out the Law and bring back the Nami here. So that was a pretty good answer to his previous turn. We're able to just fill up the board from 0 to 5 again. And we were able to draw a card with Nami too. And we swung 5k into his leader, and he was forced to use a Kaya to counter it out. So that starts to say that sort of signals that he's beginning to run out of counters in his hand. So that's something we keep note of going forward. And here we're just gonna protect ourselves from his attacks. And he sent Amaru's again. We do want to protect ourselves from his attacks because he does have some sizable bodies on the board, and with his leader ability, he can just bounce back a blocker from our side of the board, and he could potentially threaten lethal in the next coming turns if we're not too careful with our life total. So he wasn't able to get us too low, and he wasn't able to clear out most of our characters here. So we have a lot to work with. We're going to start off by tapping the body so that we can get that card draw. And we take a Zoro. Since I feel like this is a game where it might end up being a war of attrition, so this Bonnie is going to start generating a lot of value through card draw, and that Zoro may just generate value just by drawing cards out of his own hand. Since he's down to, what is that, 2 or 3 cards in hand left, we're going to start working away at his board. We're going to swing 6k first with the Nami and drawing with Nami, and at this point the extra card we get from searching is super valuable since we're able to just generate a lot more resources than him. And we're going to continue swinging 6k at his 6k bodies. There's no need to swing more than even because we're going to have more than enough attacks, and he's going to have to give them up as well as his blockers, or at the very least expend the remaining cards in his hand. So there's no need to overcommit Dawn. And just like that, we were able to clear out 3 of his characters with the swing from Nami, our leader, Zoro, and 2 swings from our blocker Law, thanks to the restand Law. And of course, the cost of that previous turn was that Bonnie, but her sacrifice was not in vain since we were able to regain board control. He's going to start swinging into Nami now, and I'm going to defend this Nami because her searching ability is probably the most valuable ability we could have at this point, at this stage of the game, under these circumstances. So I'm going to force him to commit extra Dawn just to get rid of Nami here by attaching them onto Sendamaru if he wants to make sure she's off the board. And he does attach 3 Dawn to make Sendamaru 7k and actually swings at Zoro instead. He is likely fearing that I might have another restand Law or a blocker Law, and that Zoro would go in for 2 swings the following turn. And now he's deciding what he wants to red rock, Nami or Law, because Law is of course the more valuable body. He's a 6k blocker, but Nami does generate more card draw. So he opts to red rock the Nami and bounce back the Law to my hand with his leader ability. And since he is down to 2 cards in hand, the 6k swing into the 4k Sendamaru is pretty safe, and then we also swing another 6k into his Pacifista. Then we're going to continue drawing cards with Bonnie, and Bonnie is actually really problematic for him at this point, especially since we are getting pretty late into the game where we would want to start swinging at life to end the game sooner, but he would be forced to commit an attack onto Bonnie if he wanted to get rid of her. And since Blue doesn't run any rushes and he has no characters on the board, that was actually my original plan, was to just leave Bonnie there and force him to attack her if he didn't want to start getting overwhelmed by the card generation and the value from her. But we did pick up a Zoro from that Bonnie, and I opted to go for what I believe was a stronger play, the more aggressive play here, where we just bring down Law to bounce the Bonnie back into hand and just swing at his face with Zoro. Then he's just gonna bounce Law again to our hand with the Sogeking. And so since he's down to 2 life and he is starved for resources, He's also used up all the Dawn available to him this turn. We are going to opt for the more aggressive route here. We're going to actually give up the Bonnie and counter out to protect our Zoro here, because I do have 2 blocker laws in my hand, and I plan on using them the following turn to get some extra swings in. And here he is just debating whether or not he should use his leader ability again. He chooses not to, which I think is a correct play, because if he loses 4 Dawn again, his following turn is going to be even harder. And there's just no out there. So this is just a disgusting turn. I'm going to swing with Zoro once, and then I'm going to double blocker Law to swing with Zoro 2 more times. Then I'm going to swing with leader and restand Law to bring him down to 0 and just draw out the last of his counters in his hand. So I thought we were in a pretty dominating position here, but he actually does a really good job at clearing the board here and actually forced us down to our last counter. If we didn't have the last 1000 counter in our hand here to protect that Zoro, he would have been able to wipe out our restand Law as well, and because he played a 1-cost blocker Law, we actually wouldn't be able to finish him off this turn, which would have most likely caused him to finish us off next turn. So it was actually a lot closer than I expected going into this turn, but we managed to take it home in the end and go 5-0 this tournament. And remember at the beginning when I said this film Law deck is deceptively good, because we did go 5-0, but how much of this could actually be attributed to the film cards? We played a total of maybe 2 film cards, I think, during this game, and the rest of the game was just carried by the usual suspects of Law, the restand Laws, the blocker Laws, and the rush Zoros. But I guess a win's a win, and here we are. As usual, the deck list is down below, and if you have any questions, just leave them in the comment section. And until next time, I'll talk to you guys later.